Okay, everybody, come close to your TV screen and check out this fool down in Georgia.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 robbery fails caught on camera.
If this were to happen again, you would not hesitate.
No.
Your message to the bad guys?
This isn't a good place to pick.
For this list, we'll be looking at the most ridiculous robbery attempts that were captured on tape. Have you ever witnessed a botched holdup? Let us know in the comments. Number 20. Tables turn for a masked armed robber. If you're going to rob a place with a handgun, you'd probably want to keep your weapon on you at all times. In 2019, a young man later identified as Corey T. Phillips learned this the hard way when he held up the Country Inn & Suites in Paducah, Kentucky at gunpoint. Surveillance cameras captured Phillips demanding money from the woman at the counter. After getting his wish, the criminal places his gun on the slab to gather the wads of cash thrown at him. Faced with the perfect opportunity to turn things around, the receptionist picks up the gun and points it at her attacker.
It's surreal that something life-threatening that has changed me, it's just unreal.
The now defenseless Phillips promptly flees the scene but is later arrested by the authorities. Number 19. VENTI beatdown, extra hot. When you think of the most terrifying disguises in history, an Optimus Prime mask may not be the first thing that comes to mind. That is, unless you're Ryan Flores, a would-be robber at a Starbucks in Fresno, California, armed with a knife and a gun.
The cashier says Flores told her to give him all her money. He said he didn't want to hurt her and he was doing it for his kids.
The blade may be real, but the gun, fortunately, isn't. As Flores approaches the counter, a heroic customer foils his plans by attacking him from behind with a metal chair. The two get into a struggle, during which they both sustain multiple stab wounds. Although Flores manages to escape from the facility, it doesn't take too long for police to track him down and place him under arrest.
It's not something we recommend. In this case, it was a good outcome. No one died as a result of this incident.
Number 18. Housebreakers Caught in the Act. For Massachusetts homeowner Damian Gerard, it was a case of once bitten, twice shy. After being the victim of a robbery years prior, Gerard installed security cameras in his house to thwart any further attempts. In April 2016, two alleged burglars broke into Gerard's home while he was at work, triggering his security alert system.
You can hear the sound of glass smashing as a burglar makes his way through the back door. Then he lets his buddy in through the front. Both of them quickly case the place.
The graphic designer was able to stream live footage of the suspects making their way through his home and even stopping to offer his dog a treat. Gerard immediately called the authorities as he ran towards his house.
Emergency. My house is being robbed by two individuals. Please get somebody there right away.
Police arrested one of the suspects inside the building, while the other was chased down by the officers and Gerard after jumping out a window. Number 17. Brazilian store owner fatally wounds robbers. A 2017 attempted robbery by two assailants at a convenience store in Goiás, Brazil, soon became the Wild Wild West. Footage from surveillance cameras show the two men walk into the establishment seemingly as innocent customers.
So what we see here is these guys are just acting cool. I mean, the guy with the helmet on is a little bit sketchy. And you can see the guy in the green shirt's looking around. He's giving those pre-attack indicators.
Things take a turn for the worse, however, when one of them brandishes his weapon and threatens an unsuspecting patron with it. The owner quickly draws out his gun and shoots at the robbers, who return fire as they run out of the store.
Bad guy number one with the gun emptied all the beans in the wheel and then he runs off.
The two suspects sustained severe injuries in the process, which they reportedly succumbed to. Although the owner surrendered to the police, he was later released on the grounds of self-defense. Number 16. Indian Bank Robbery. CCTV footage at a State Bank of India branch showed the terrifying moment a gang of armed robbers stormed the premises. In that instance, what was presumably a slow day at work for the security guard swiftly became one of his most arduous challenges. It's not exactly clear how many there are, but the assailants, armed with knives and guns, quickly populate the place and subdue any opposition. However, there is clearly a lack of organization, as they seem to move around aimlessly without actually doing much. Eventually, one of the men surfaces with what looks like a small bag of cash, and they all exit. We can't say for sure, but it seems like a tiny payday for such a big risk. Number 15. Locked inside a convenience store. Many armed robbers are lucky to meet store clerks who hand over valuables without much of a hassle. However, that was not the case for these two assailants, who attempted to hold up a convenience store in Calgary, Canada. Just before 5 a.m. on August 17, 2017, the pair barged into the shop armed with a pickaxe and tire iron. The brave clerk on duty put up a fight, single-handedly tackling both robbers. At some point, he manages to run out and locks the criminals inside. It takes a while for the robbers to realize that it's a glass door they can easily break, but by then, the cops are already on the way. Number 14. Mexican cowboy thwarts armed robbery. You might want to take a quick look at the people in a store before brandishing a gun and attempting to rob them. That was the lesson this seemingly fearless assailant learned when he strolled up to the cash register and whipped out his gun. Standing in front of the register is a man in a cowboy hat, who seems to be waiting for just the right moment. Once the robber gets a little distracted, the man lunges forward and tackles him, throwing his gun to the floor. The weapon is quickly picked up by another employee. Now, shirtless, the assailant bolts for the door, but his escape is dramatically cut short by one of the staffers. Number 13. Sledgehammer Bank Robbery. Banks typically go the extra mile to ensure that the money entrusted in their hands is kept safe. But sometimes not even bulletproof glass can get in the way of the most determined criminals.
This CCTV footage shows the moment a man attempted a smash-and-grab raid at a Chinese bank with a sledgehammer.
Take this guy, for example. After realizing that the bank is outfitted with security glass, he decides to take a sledgehammer to it. The strong material gives him a tough time, but he's eventually able to crack a large enough hole to squeeze through. However, by the time he's in, he discovers that he can't even access the money. Even worse, he's now surrounded by a group of citizens willing to mete out justice.
It wasn't long after people living nearby began to arrive to investigate the commotion.
We can only wonder how far that determination took him. Number 12. Armed criminal is trapped in store. There's probably no better representation of the 5 stages of grief than this surveillance camera footage from a cell phone store in Houston, Texas. On April 17, 2017, an armed man identified as John Bell calmly walked in and demanded cash from an employee.
Hey!
Open this. Open it now.
No, don't open.
Open it.
After refusing to open the register, the lady rushed out alongside 2 customers and locked Bell inside. Once he realizes he's trapped, the young man does everything thinkable to regain his freedom. He shoots the lock and tries kicking down the door, all to no avail. He then resorts to begging and praying, but even the supernatural beings seem to want nothing to do with the case.
Please. I have nothing. Please.
Eventually, the police arrive and whisk him away. Number 11. Meat Cleaver Bank Robbery. You have to be extremely ridiculous for the person you're robbing to find you amusing. That was exactly the case in this 2014 attempted robbery at a China construction bank in Shanghai. The would-be criminal casually walks up to the teller and presses a meat cleaver to the plexiglass. Both the customer and the lady at the register can't seem to believe what they're looking at. And we're not even sure this man believes in himself either. The stick-up is pretty much over before it can even begin. Just as the teller breaks down in laughter, the robber is easily subdued by the security guards. Number 10. Georgia gun store owner fends off robbers. Even though you're armed, it's probably not the smartest idea to attempt robbing a store filled with weapons.
It's just amazing to see somebody try to come into a gun store to rob a gun store.
These 2 suspects certainly proved that not all criminals are smart when they stormed the Dixie Gun and Pawn Shop in Mableton, Georgia. They first aim at one employee who quickly raises his hands in the air. But as soon as store owner Jimmy Groover realizes what's happening, he draws out his own gun and fires at the suspects. One of them is immediately floored by the bullets and is reported to have passed away on the spot. The other is lucky enough to escape just as the establishment fills up with smoke from the gunshots.
The owner and an employee, along with 2 customers, were inside the store at the time. They gave statements on the scene. Later, the owner went to police HQ but was not charged.
Number 9. Liquor Store Clerk Draws Faster. A would-be armed robber was in for a big surprise when he decided to steal from a liquor store in Marionville, Missouri.
He was working a typical shift Sunday night when things got interesting.
A gentleman could come in the door there smoking a cigarette, and I asked him to take a cigarette back outside.
A war veteran and former prison guard John Lewis Alexander was working the cash register that day when the suspect entered the shop while smoking his cigarette. After reportedly telling him to put it out, Alexander has a gun pulled on him. Without even missing a beat, the ex-military man hits the weapon back, draws out his own handgun, and points it directly in the criminal's face.
From the time the man walked through the door, Alexander says the whole exchange was only about 11 seconds.
You never know exactly what to do, you just hope you do the right thing.
Needless to say, the robber quickly accepts defeat and backs out of the store. Number 8. Father and son join forces against thief. These 2 assailants clearly entered the wrong store in their attempt at making a quick cash grab. The incident occurred on July 18, 2017 at the ZCOM cell phone store in Arlington, Texas.
My son jumped in, I just followed him. Something going to happen for both of us.
The shop, which was manned by owner Huru Manga and his son, received 2 unwanted guests that day. One of the would-be robbers pulls out his gun and jumps over the counter. But his efforts are foiled by Manga's son, and later by Manga himself, as the 2 quickly tackle him to the ground. Although the second suspect also pulls out his gun, thankfully he never fires it before running out of the store. Despite trying to hold one of them inside, both robbers manage to get away. Number 7. Knife insecurity. It was a clash of knives for this assailant and a convenience store clerk. Surveillance cameras in the shop captured the moment a man in a blue hoodie walks up to the register, presumably posing as a regular customer. That facade soon comes off as the robber brandishes a knife and demands money from the store clerk. Things seem to be working out for him. That is until the lady whips out an even bigger knife that makes his look like a letter opener. It doesn't take too long for the man to make a run for the door after realizing that he may have bitten off a little more than he could chew.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Number 6. Karachi Bank Robbery. A banking hall in Karachi, Pakistan became the location of one very daunting robbery. The assailant calmly walks up to the teller as if intending to deposit some money. But on closer look, you can't help but notice something suspicious about him. Once he takes out his gun and starts fumbling with it, everyone else quickly clears out the hall. The ambitious robber is left alone, faced with sturdy security glass that he eventually manages to pull down. However, as he jumps over the counter to grab the cash, he forgets his gun, only realizing his mistake after running off without it. Say what you want about this guy, but at least he seems to have pulled off his heist. Number 5. California store owner flips the script. Only stupid prizes await those who decide to play stupid games. That lesson was certainly learned by this would-be thief who attempted to rob a liquor store in Norco, California. After noticing a suspicious vehicle pull into his establishment, Craig Cope, the 80-year-old owner, was prepared for the worst.
There wasn't much time to think about it. It was just the guy pointed the gun directly at me. Then it's him or me.
The assailant barges in with an assault rifle pointed right at Cope, who is standing behind the counter. He barely gets his words out before the elderly man fires at him, landing a shot in his arm. Surveillance cameras show the robber running out of the store and into a getaway car filled with other accomplices. The 4 suspects were later found at a hospital and arrested. Number 4. Breaking down the wrong wall. In order to execute the perfect heist, you'd need to do a lot of planning. Not only that, you also have to ensure that your plans are accurate and as airtight as possible. or you stand the risk of ending up like these guys.
Raymond Betson behind bars again for his part in what could have been a most audacious raid. A cash depot in Swanley.
Their idea seemed pretty simple. Using a bulldozer, they'd break down the wall behind a cash depot and make off with an incredibly large amount. But as simple as it seemed, these criminals executed their plan only to realize that they had broken down the wrong wall.
But when Betson and his masked gang, armed with baseball bats, tried to ram raid the Loomis UK depot on Mark Way in the dead of night, they smashed their way into the wrong wall. What they found, instead of millions of pounds in a cash vault, was an empty loading bay.
It's not quite clear what happened in the end, but they probably should have checked a map a few more times before putting things in motion. Number 3. Robber uses clear plastic bag as a disguise. It should go without saying that an effective disguise is of the utmost importance when attempting to stick up a place. Sadly, it seems someone wasn't paying attention in robbery school. The perp in question was 22-year-old Carrie Hammond, who broke into a GameStop in St. Mary's, Georgia, and robbed the store.
He tried to rob a GameStop store wearing a plastic bag, but not just any plastic bag.
As his well-thought-out disguise, Hammond put on a transparent plastic bottle bag in hopes that it would conceal his identity. Pretty sure we don't need to tell you how terribly that ended.
One thing is for sure, this was not the plastic bag for smart water.
Even the local police department found it really funny. They uploaded the surveillance video to Facebook, writing in their caption, "You can help us catch him once you stop laughing." Number 2. Pull to open. Admittedly, many of us have been in this situation before, but it's a much different ballgame when you're robbing a bank. The suspect struts up to the teller and seemingly hands them a demand note, but the security system is immediately triggered and the screen flies up. As his plan is foiled, the man sprints for the exit but doesn't seem to realize it's a pull, don't push door. Believing he's now trapped, he accepts defeat and waits for the police. It takes an elderly lady to enter the bank for the robber to realize his mistake. It's so ridiculous that if we didn't know any better, we'd think it was an ad for a door manufacturer. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Axeman. This one certainly starts out quite terrifying before devolving into absolute ridiculousness. A man walks into a local savings bank in the district of Baodi in Chongqing, China. Once in, he dons a mask, immediately striking terror in the hearts of the two female tellers. The guy goes to town on the thick pane of security glass, hitting it countlessly with an axe. Eventually, he manages to crawl through and secures some cash for himself, but anyone watching can tell that time is running out. Just as he's about to make his getaway, he's caught by police with one leg out. It's a pretty daring act, but when it comes to robberies, the words slow and fail usually go hand in hand. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.